Coming up on the Pacer Pulse podcast, the Indiana Pacers lose to the Atlanta Hawks on the road. What was the major cause for this loss? It was a poor second half, and the bench unit just not showing up today gets heavily outplayed by the Atlanta Hawks bench, amongst many other things. And on top of that, Ben Mathurin does make his return tonight. What is up, Pacer Nation? Welcome to the Pacer Pulse podcast, the heartbeat of Indiana basketball. I'm your host, Sean Trader, and today, guys, the Atlanta Hawks beat the Indiana Pacers 116 to 132. And the game got moved up early today. It was like about 1:30ish when they started this game because of the winter storms. So I guess they wanted to be prepared in case something happened. But all in all, guys, pretty terrible loss today. We came out of the gates hot. We had a pretty solid first half. But then right about the 6-minute mark into the second half, it just completely imploded, and the Hawks just ran away with it, and we really just could never recover after that. It was pretty much a runaway game after that point, but we did play the Pacers' way a little bit in that first half, so I wanted to give us props for that, but all in all, we get another loss on the season. We are still at 11 losses, so I'm not saying I'm hoping for losses right now, but I do want to say, obviously, we're not trying to win too many games because of our draft pick. I know we still have a whole other second half of this season, but it is something to keep in mind, guys, because we don't want to win too many games. We don't want to lose our position because we don't want to get to the end of this season and win, let's say, 20 games or whatever it ends up being, and we end up placing anywhere from like 5 to 10 in the lottery. That would just be like this season was for nothing. So I think the team knows that, but I just wanted to touch on that, which I'm not completely upset about this loss, but I do think we saw a few good things in this game. So I think we can at least take away a little bit, even though the second half was pretty atrocious. But the headliner of this game, the number one takeaway I want to start with is what really decided this game. And I do think it all boiled down to the whole game. Defense was not being played. So we did not set the tone defensively. Even whenever we were playing well in the first half, we were pretty bad defensively. I think the Hawks, if I look it up right, they scored about 34 points in the first quarter. So we scored 38. So there wasn't much defense being played. Then each team scored 26 in the second quarter. But then, like I said, the main headliner, though, was the fact that we just completely collapsed in the second half. It was around the 6-minute mark into the third quarter, and the Hawks just went on some crazy 25 to 7 run to get the lead at one point. It was like, I think they were up by 3 or so. I can't remember after the end of the third quarter. And then they just piled on from there. They outscored us in the fourth quarter, 37 to 24. They outscored us in the third quarter, 28 to 35. And that's even off of a Siakam scoring about 14 plus points in the third quarter. But after that, it's just completely fell off the rails. Our defense was even worse than what it was. Our offense wasn't clicking. We weren't moving the ball enough. And I thought there were some interesting choices throughout that stretch, too, that I thought didn't make a ton of sense in the terms of who we were playing at certain points. But like I said, our defense was just really bad pretty much all game. But it was really like the offense that really just stopped clicking. We stopped hitting shots. And it was really our bench unit that kickstarted this run for Atlanta. Because I know at one point we had like Potter out there, Mathurin, TJ, Siakam was kind of part of this run. Shepard, I think, some other bench guys. But that unit really, we pretty much just got ran off the floor with that unit. It was bad, and we couldn't score. We couldn't get any offense going. We weren't hitting shots. And that's what really, I think, determined this game. Then, of course, like I said, the bench unit's getting completely outplayed. I mean, TJ had 16 and so did Mathurin. But the Atlanta Hawks, I mean, they had several guys go off on the bench this game. I mean, their bench essentially carried them in this game. CJ McCollum had 23 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists off the bench. Luke Kennard had 13 points. Christian Koloko, 12 points. I mean, I don't know his first name, but Gay for them. He had 7 points. They just completely outperformed our bench units. And our starters, they weren't the greatest either, but that starting five that we had tonight, we did go with the small ball lineup again. I'll touch up on that a little bit. They performed pretty much okay. I think you would take what they did. Yeah, Nembhard didn't have a great game offensively. He did have 13 assists. Neesmith shot better this game. Walker, I would say, had a pretty solid game still. Compared to his Thunder game, that's his best game of his career. But all in all, like, you got what you wanted kind of out of the starters. For the most part, Siakam struggled to shoot from the field, but that's what I think really stood out from this game. It's just the that horrible run that started with the bench unit in like the halfway point in that third quarter, and we just could never recover from there. It just really took off, and that's really what determined this game, guys. Of those two things was just our bench getting outperformed and a complete collapse on the offensive defensive end. So the players I do want to kind of like spotlight that I thought was pretty good in this game. So there wasn't too many, but I do want to highlight Johnny Furphy. He did lead the team in plus minus, but he only played 18 minutes, which I thought was kind of a confusing decision. But he had 6 points, he had 5 rebounds, an assist, 2 steals, but he had several plays throughout this game where you can just tell like his defense is growing and growing by the game. It's just he's able to move his feet in such a quick way that you wouldn't expect from a guy that's like 6'8", 6'9". But he's so athletic too, that helps as well. But he's very good at moving his feet, and I think it's because I think he played football, like different things like that in Australia. I'm not sure what else, but you could tell he's got very good footwork in that regard, and he's able to really shuffle his feet. Like there was one play that I think it was Onyeka Okongwu, was like driving at him and really bumped him pretty hard, but Furphy was still able to like stand his ground and get his hands up, and it allowed Isaiah Jackson to come in and fly in and get a block. It was almost like a tandem block, it looked like to me, like during the game. I thought Furphy actually got the block, but I guess they gave it to Jackson. But it just was like a really encouraging play that I saw where I was like, man, if Furphy can even, I know Onyeka is not like a tall center, he's like 6'8", 6'9", but the fact that he was able to kind of like hold his own a little bit in that regard and really stand his ground, he's only going to get stronger as he ages too. So I just thought I've seen a lot of growth from Furphy in this game, and he continues to be solid on the glass too. I think if he would have played a lot more, he would have led their team in rebounding again probably. I mean, Siakam led the team with 9 rebounds, but he played 35 minutes. So Furphy playing almost half of that amount of time, had 5 rebounds, so you could imagine he probably would have had closer to 10. But I really like what I see. Like I said, I know his shot's not completely falling at the rate we'd like to see. I think once he gets that 3 ball to really start to fall, we're going to see his impacts grow even more and more. And I think at that point, like if he really starts hitting that 3 ball, I think there's guys that are going to get kind of phased out of the rotation, or he's going to really supplement and replace at some point. Because next year, guys, we got to think Tyrese is coming back. So somebody's going to be losing their spot, and we don't know what's going to happen with any roster moves and whatnot. So who's really safe and who's not. But I really wanted to highlight Furphy because he did lead the team in plus minus, and he continues to just show growth in so many different ways. And I do want to highlight Jarris Walker again. He did have a pretty solid game. He had 12 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 5 steals, and a block. So if you're going off like those defensive numbers alone too, very solid game on the defensive end. And his plus minus was 0. So, you know, he didn't hurt the team and he didn't like completely help the team, but he was solid. He did have 3 turnovers, which some of those are pretty rough turnovers. So we kind of got some more of that this game from Jarris. But he shot well. He's 4 of 8 from the field. He was 2 of 4 from 3. So he is starting to shoot better from the field over the last 20 plus games. He's really turned that around. But I thought he just kind of had like a pretty solid overall night, I would say. And he got rewarded. He got to play 30 minutes in this game, and I guess Rick, he just saw that he was making a positive impact. And a team like the Hawks, you really need like a Walker to help match like their size and length, because they got a bunch of guys that are like 6'7" to 6'9" that can play multiple positions, like Dyson Daniels, even Nikhil Alexander Walker is like 6'6", and Jalen Johnson, of course, 6'9". Ricochet didn't play this game, so they didn't have his size. They started Corey Kispert, but even Okongwu, Walker could kind of match up a little bit with him maybe, but not a ton. But he just gives you more of that versatility and just a guy with that length to really help match up against the Hawks. And then Nesmith, I want to highlight him too. He did have a better game, especially shooting-wise, where he's been struggling. He shot 6 of 11 from the field, 3 of 6 from 3, and he was a +3 this game. But he did have 3 turnovers, so if he could clean that up a little. But I did want to highlight him as we're at least starting to see him kind of turn around the shooting, where he had a really rough stretch there for a long time, where he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. He couldn't throw the ball in the ocean. It was looking pretty rough for a while. And it just goes to show, I mean, there's so many ebbs and flows within the season, so it's not something you're worried about whenever he goes on those stretches, but it's encouraging to see him at least like turn it around and start knocking these down at a higher clip. So it's not really something you ever doubt in Nesmith. he's always going to give you 110% on the defensive end and the hustle plays and different things like that. So his impact is still felt regardless. But I wanted to highlight him. I want to highlight TJ. He was he had 16 points on the bench, but he was a negative 18. So, like I said, the bench unit just really struggled tonight. I can't really highlight too many people off the bench. Mathurin, he did have 16 points in that first half, where he just came out guns a-blazing. Like, he had 10 points in the first quarter alone, and he was looking on fire, guys. You were just like watching it, you're like, man, like he's coming back. He's looking fully healthy, and he just had kind of a complete collapse in the second half. And it wasn't even just him. Like, a lot of guys didn't play well in the second half, so I can't put that all on him. But he did have a rough go at the start of the second half there, and it wasn't pretty. But you want to give him some rope because he was just coming back from an injury. He's not really in game rhythm, but seeing that he was going pretty solid there early on, and it's not like he ended up shooting bad from the field. He was 6 of 10, 2 of 3 from 3, so awesome shooting percentages. It's just defensively there was some lapses, and he didn't score at all in the second half. So obviously that's something you want to see improved on. But for his first game back, you can't expect a whole lot, and he's just kind of trying to get his legs back under him. I don't know if the toe injury would still be bothering him. Hopefully, like, the thumb injury is pretty much done with. But all in all, like, wasn't a great game for Mathurin at all. But at least it was nice to see him like hit his shots. So I'm trying to, like, I don't know, what do you want to call it, like, find the positive in that. So, and then Siakam, he did lead the team with 26 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, but he shot 8 of 21 from the field, 2 of 9 from 3. So not a very efficient game from Siakam. He did, I guess, have the stats, but it just wasn't efficient enough to really be a highlight, I guess. But my biggest highlights would be Johnny Furphy and Jarris Walker. And Nembhard did have 13 assists, but he had 4 turnovers. He was 3 of 10 from the field, 0 of 2 from 3. So he didn't really have a great Nembhard game, even though he did have 13 assists. I'll give him that, but it's not what we're been accustomed to seeing here lately. But I do think he really struggled tonight offensively for sure. And then my other takeaway was the fact that we went with a small ball lineup again. And I don't blame him because of how successful it was in that in the last game that we had, where we played the Thunder, of course, and it looked lights out. I mean, it just looked awesome, and you could really tell, like, our offense was electric there in the first half. I mean, or in the first quarter. We had 38 points, guys. So, I mean, it was working. Maybe on the defensive end it wasn't as much because we gave up 34. But you could see the ball was moving, and it was just, we had a lot of flow. The ball was moving fast. Guys were moving the ball, skipping passes. It was kind of really pretty to see. And it's just, I don't know why, we kind of went away with it throughout the game as the game went on. And that's like the one thing that I thought was an adjustment that we were really lacking, was the fact that we just went away too much from the small ball lineup, and we only played like Furphy 18 minutes, where I thought he was actually playing very well, and clearly he was. He led the team in plus minus. So I am going to question that as to why did Johnny Furphy only play like 18 minutes in this game. And Rick, he did go to Isaiah Jackson a lot more, especially kind of in that second half, and Micah Potter too. And both those guys really struggled tonight. I mean, they just didn't provide anything. I know why he played Micah Potter again this game, because he had an awesome game against the Thunder, so you want to reward that. Because Jay Huff, he played like garbage time at the end of this game, but that was about it, guys. He didn't really play a whole lot this game, didn't do anything, and that was pretty eye-opening to me. And maybe that's just, like I said, he was trying to reward Micah Potter for his game against the Thunder, and I completely understand that. You're gonna roll with a lineup and rotation that won against the best team in the NBA. I mean, that makes sense, obviously, logically. But I just thought it was just a weird choice when you saw that it wasn't working. And I just think that Rick and the coaching staff, they could have went to that small ball lineup a little more, and they'd really strayed away from it. And maybe they played some of the bench units together too much. I thought, especially in that run where we were really collapsing in the third quarter, where we had like a lot of the bench unit out there. I think he could have brought in some more of the starters, or at least mix up the rotation a little bit to get a fresh look out there. I think that was a big reason why, and I just think that we let that go for far too long. I think we could have stopped that if we just made a few of adjustments. He did put like Siakam in and try to help aid that, I think. It's just, it wasn't enough. I think that Ben Shepherd was pretty bad tonight. He just didn't really have much of an impact. Obviously, Micah Potter was really struggling, and Isaiah Jackson too. So I'm surprised that he didn't go back to Johnny Furphy, who was playing well. It was just like, hey, we're going to roll with Johnny Furphy. If he's going to play like 28 minutes tonight, awesome. That's what you kind of want to see when when he's playing that impactful of basketball, especially early on in this game. So that's where I was just like, well, it didn't make a ton of sense to me. And the reason why is because I think I saw from Tony East too on X where he said that we had a positive plus minus whenever the small ball unit was out there tonight compared to any other lineups in this game. So we won our minutes when the small ball lineup was out there, but any other minutes outside of that didn't have that lineup, we lost. So I thought that was very interesting, and it really did paint a picture because, like I said, we really led for like most of this game in the first half, and then it just completely fell apart, even going into like halfway into the third quarter. So I just think that he rode the other bigs too much, where we should have went small, and just like some of those matchups that I think that he could have put in some adjustments there, maybe went back to being small, not playing Micah Potter too much or Isaiah Jackson. I think some of that really did kill us. And just, it was too much to overcome at that point. Atlanta just had too much momentum. And they went on a crazy run. I'll give them that. And just really put it on us. I mean, they started hitting shots and it was kind of game over from there. But we did shoot well tonight as a team, guys. Or not from three, but we shot well from the field goal percentage wise. We shot 46% from the field. So not terrible, not great as a team, but Atlanta shot 50%. They shot 42% from three. So they clearly outperformed us on that. We still moved the ball well. We had 31 assists, but they had 35. So they beat us in that. And we rebounded decently too. That's always the biggest stats I look for with us and a team every game is the rebounding battle and points in the paint because we lose those about all the time. And I always see that we lose those in just about every game that we lose those two battles every game. So, like I said here, we lost the rebounding battle 42-46, not by much, but we lost it. And then points in the paint, we lost it 56-54. So even if they were close, it was enough still to where I think it still led to a lot more momentum going Atlanta's way. And then the bench points, we lost 55-48 because, like I was saying earlier, their bench heavily outperformed ours. Even if like points wise, it was pretty close. Just in terms of their overall impact, it was way better than ours. And that's just, like I said, the two main things that really cost us this game was just the fact that we collapsed in that third quarter and we just could not overcome the bench units. And just, I think some of those rotations could have been adjusted. But what does this mean going forward for this loss, guys? It's something I always kind of like to look at after each game. And I think it just means we're on track, guys. We're on track for what we should be accomplishing this year is losing. And I hate saying that because even when I'm watching these games, like I know like losing is the best outcome, even though obviously you want to see this team win and succeed. It's just this season is already kind of lost. I think every Pacer fan would agree with that. We all know we have to maximize this pick this year. We cannot risk falling to number 5, even though I know that's a possibility, even with like top odds. But at least if we could strengthen our odds to have over a 50% chance of getting a top 3 to 4 pick, you have to do that. So I was happy with the outcome. It's just, it was discouraging to see like the complete collapse in the second half and just see our team kind of have that trend all year, right? Where we always kind of do this throughout the season, where we just have at least one quarter where we just completely fall off the rails and we can't do anything offensively and defensively. And this game was no different. And the rotation implications, I think we're going to see Johnny Furphy get more minutes because of how impactful he was in the minutes that he played. I think with Mathurin coming back too, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen before the trade deadline. There's a lot of up in the air, but he's definitely going to be getting his minutes, of course. He played 26 tonight, so I don't know if he even has a minute restriction or not. But we are going to see him play some more. I think Jarris, you're going to see him continue to get more minutes if he's going to continue to play at this level. I guess I don't see why he wouldn't. And I'm a guy that has included Jarris Walker just about in every trade scenario. And maybe this is good to even boost his trade value. So even if you're on the keep Walker, I don't know, fence, if there even is that right now with Jarris Walker, or if you're on the side of, oh, we want to boost his value to trade him, you're happy either way with how he's performing. So I'm still in the mind of we use Walker as like a trade chip. That's kind of where I still land. I like that he's been playing better, but I also think we have to like consolidate some of these pieces in terms of shoring up some of our other shortcomings in this roster, like the center. So I think that you're going to see Walker play more still because of both his impact and then maybe boosting his trade value. That's why I kind of see that. And then is this, to me, like, I don't know if there's ever any trends to take away from this season too, where I try to look at that too from did I think that we were going to have a trend from the OKC game where we were just going to come out and start winning games at a high rate and whatnot? No, I did not believe that. And if you listen to the podcast I did over that, I said that too. I don't think it meant anything in terms of turning our season around. I think that's for sure. I do think it was kind of more of like a moral victory against the Thunder, considering what happened in the finals last year. It was like a personal game. That's why we really played well in that game and came out on top. But I didn't think it was going to trigger some sort of winning streak or just some sort of shift in our team's, I don't know, what do you want to call it? Potential of winning more games and making the play-in or whatever outcome you would think that would lead to. I don't believe that's going to be the case. But I do think it led to like more guys having bigger confidence. I think it did lead to Jarris having more confidence in his game and Johnny Furphy, like the young guys especially, maybe even Nimhard, even though he had a rough shooting night. I think after his strong game against the Thunder, you would think it kind of upped his confidence even more. And then Neesmith with his like shooting coming back to being normal. Hopefully his confidence is going back up. But I don't think this is any sort of outcome you could take from this, and there's the fact that we're still on the right track, guys, of improving our lottery odds. So I think that's what we want most out of the rest of this season. I do think that we'll see it more and more after the All-Star break too, where we're going to see Siakam sit a lot more, I believe. TJ McConnell even. D. Smith, Nembhard, randomly these games. Maybe not all of those guys at the same time, but just in increments of different games. I think we're going to see that more. We're going to see Johnny Furphy play more, depending on who's here at the deadline still. Jarris Walker will be playing more, or Ben Mathurin, of course. Cam Jones. Some of these other young guys, Shepard, are going to get more playing time again. I do foresee that happening. And then who knows whatever happens at the deadline. That said player, if we trade for them, they're going to get playing time, of course. But now I want to go into like a game preview of the next game. So let me look at the schedule here, guys. So upcoming, we play the Chicago Bulls Wednesday on the 28th. So I don't know if that game's going to get postponed because of this winter storm stuff. We'll have to see. But a pretty good matchup. The Bulls have been winning a lot of games lately. They've won 4 out of the last 5 games, so they've been on a good win streak. They've been playing Jalen Smith at power forward a lot, and he's been very impactful for them. For you guys, Pacer Nation, that remember Jalen Smith, of course. Vucevic, that combination in the front court has really helped them. And they've been bringing Josh Giddey off the bench, too. I don't know if that's because he's been injured and they've eased him in, or they just thought he'd be better off the bench. I don't know. But they've been playing good basketball. So look out for that matchup there. I'm interested to see how our front court looks compared to theirs. Like, if we start Jay Huff that game and Siakam, how are they going to match up with Vucevic and Jalen Smith? I would like to see kind of that matchup. So that would be one I think that would be to look out for. It's just how the front courts perform against each other. If we decide to go small ball that game still, regardless of their size, or if we just try to match up their size and play Jay Huff again and start him, it's just you don't really know. So that's something I would keep an eye on. And one thing we need to see him improve is just our consistency throughout the entire game. And then obviously the bench. We got to see the bench perform at a way higher level. I think that we're going to see that more. I mean, obviously the bench has been pretty off and on the entire season, right? We haven't got consistent play, but depending how the lineups shake out here, I don't know if Mathurin's going to eventually get reinserted back into the lineup. We saw this with Neesmith when he first came back. They kind of eased his way back in. So I'll be curious to see how that works. I think eventually he's obviously going to start again. So it's just seeing who's going to get booted out of the lineup. I guess it just depends who's playing better at that moment, but I think that's something to keep an eye on too. And then I just want to know your guys' opinion on this game, guys. What do you think about Jarris Walker's performance? What do you think about Johnny Furphy's performance this season so far, in this game especially? Walker's performance. What do you think about Nembhard with his kind of like his up and down game sometimes, of like one game he'll be amazing, the next game he just can't shoot at all or like put the ball in the basket? What do you think about his inconsistencies on the offensive end, even though he is playmaking still? I would like to hear. Leave a comment on YouTube. Let me know what you think. And please always leave a like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. It means a lot to me as well. And if you guys could always leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify or any other listening platforms that you listen to the podcast on, I'd really appreciate it. And also, I wanted to announce that today, or yesterday officially, I'm now on X. So, have no idea how X works right now. I'm not going to lie. I sound old, I get it, but you can find me on X at Pacers Pulse Pod. That's it. Pacers Pulse Pod. I couldn't do podcast. Somebody or something like that. Something was already taken, so I did Pacers Pulse Pod. So you can find me there on X. I'm gonna be what do you call it now? I mean, back whenever I was used to it being Twitter, called it a tweet. I don't know what you call it now, but I'm gonna be doing posts about just what I see throughout the games during a game. So just you're gonna get live reactions out of me with that, and then just maybe like other updates for the podcast. Just I think I'm gonna be trying to be a lot more active on that platform. So look for me there if you guys want more Pacer content. And just I really appreciate you guys listening, guys. I always appreciate your guys' feedback on how I could be better in this podcast. And I can't do this without you guys. I'm a fan-made podcast. I want this to be an awesome community where we can grow this and really talk about the Pacers and have that extreme fandom, because that's just what this was all about to me. I just love talking about this team. And I just want to I've always loved like content from the Pacers, like setting the pace, locked on Pacers, different platforms like that. I'm like, man, it would be awesome to kind of add to that and bring some more content. So that's what really inspired me to do this. And also, guys, if you listen to Setting the Pace, I got on there with Alex and we did the Center of Attention series that they've been doing on their podcast. I helped him cover the Chicago Bulls. So that just got put out today. So if you haven't checked that out yet, I really appreciate if you check that out and give it a listen. Really thankful that Alex allowed me to be on the podcast there and really help kind of give my insights on what I think about the Chicago Bulls centers, which is pretty telling because we're about to play them here coming up. So we're going to see what they're really made of. But you'll hear our opinions on that, and we'll just talk a little Pacers basketball, reminisce on Jalen Smith a little bit in his time here that he had with us. And I did say I miss the goggles. I do miss seeing the goggles all the time from Jalen Smith. But I am going to put out another podcast probably either today or tomorrow, and I'm going to cover a story that I haven't covered yet. I even briefly mentioned it on another pod where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to do a full podcast on it, but I decided I'm going to. I'm going to talk about the article talking about Mathurin possibly getting traded to the Pelicans for Yves Missi. And I just want to cover, does that make sense for the Pacers? Why would the Pacers be interested? Does it make sense for the Pelicans? And just what else would need to be included? Because I think we all understand that that is not enough of a return for Ben Mathurin. Regardless of what you think of him, I think we all can agree on that. So I just kind of wanted to dive into that report a little more, give my thoughts on all that, and just what it can maybe even signal about the Pacers and what direction we could possibly be thinking about going if we are that interested in Yves Missi. I just think that it shows a lot of insight, guys, into what our thinking could possibly be as a franchise as well. But like I said, I can't thank you enough, Pacer Nation, for listening, and I will talk to you soon.